Okay, we're going to kind of pick up where we left off, but I had skipped one of the problems here in the first section, so I'm going to do that one just as a refresher because I know over the weekend we tend to forget things. So I'm going to backtrack very briefly to number 14.
Wait, so that homework is going to be combined with like the other stuff you gave us today?
Yes.
So that wasn't due today?
No, I said like 8 times on Friday. Do not turn in the homework on Monday.
You have the homework listed?
So if you didn't listen and you put it in the box, you best get it out. All right, so these problems said to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of the acute angles of the triangle. We talked about since the one angle is a right angle, that means the other two have to be acute by definition. And so we're just going to find it for each one. So the sine of G. So G's over here. So remember it's opposite. So that would be 2 over the hypotenuse, which is root 5. And then we plug in our calculator 2 divided by the square root of 5, and we get a decimal number rounded to 4 decimal places, because that's what they tell us to do in the instructions. So somebody divide that and tell me what it's equal to.
0.8944.
And then we do the cosine of G. So cosine is adjacent to the one touching it over the hypotenuse, so 1 over the square root of 5. I know everybody has a calculator, so Abby shouldn't be the only one doing these decimals. Tangent of G is opposite over adjacent, so the 2 over 1, which obviously is just 2. So we just leave it like that. All right, now that's one of the acute angles. I now need to go and do it for H as well. So the sine of H, how would I set that one up?
1 over root 5.
Yep, 1 over root 5. 0.4472. Cosine of H.
2 over root 5.
Yep. So remember we talked about these, when you're looking at the acute angles, the sine and the cosines of them just flip on problems like this. So this is that 0.8944. And then the tangent of H.
1 over 2.
Yep, 1 over 2, which then obviously it goes to 4 decimal places. However, if the decimal stops before we get to 4 decimal places, we can just stop. You don't need to write zeros at the end. And quite frankly, that one I probably would have just left written as 1/2, but since they said decimals, I made it a decimal. All right, I'm going to hit, let's see, we stopped at 20. I'm going to hit a couple calculator ones just to make sure, since some people got a calculator over the weekend, that our calculators are all in the right mode. So number 22 is going to be the sine of 78 degrees. So if your calculator is in the right mode, you should get that this is equal to 0.9781. I want everybody to check and make sure that you get that, to make sure that our calculators are in the correct mode. More so if you got one of these, I'm worried about it. If you got one of these, it's probably fine.
When we only have to do 4 decimals, never mind. Why do you put the degrees?
You don't, sorry. You just type in 78. Did you get this number? Your calculator's in the other mode.
What is the difference between like the 2 modes?
Well, clearly you get the answers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like, what is that?
Radians is with
Radians is, well, it's like, you think about it in terms of radius, but it's like so many radiuses of arc length, basically, is what it comes down to.
which is
You learn about it in Algebra 2. We don't do anything with it until then, but it correlates, they're all in increments of pi.
yeah. I saw Nicholas
So.
doing something with it, and I didn't want to try and ask.
All right, did everybody else get this? Everybody's calculators are in their correct mode. All right, so anytime we're typing these in, we just hit either sine, cosine, or tangent, and then we hit the angle value, and the good point was brought up. You don't actually put in the degree symbol. It's literally just the number. Your calculator is in degree mode, so it understands that whatever you put into it is meant to be a degree value. So that's why we don't have to do that. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the new stuff now then. Find the value of each variable around decimals to the nearest tenth. So notice these are in tenths now. So start with 28. So they're still going to give us a triangle. And then we're just solving for the variable. Some of them will have two variables. Some of them may just have one. Oh, got rid of the whole triangle. Come back. All right, so notice on this one, they gave us one of the angle values. Well, I guess you could argue they gave us two since they told us that it's a right angle. So now we're going to have this done a little bit differently. So I obviously can't do anything that correlates the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, right? At the moment, because both of those are unknown variables. So I need something that correlates with the opposite and then one of those things. Now, can I find this angle up here? Yes, but I wouldn't. That's extra work you don't need to do. If you're just like super ambitious and you want to, have at it. But I would just use the given values. So what correlates this angle here with 6 and x? Which trig function?
Sine.
Yep, because it's opposite over hypotenuse. So we're going to, instead of it being like the sine of whatever the letter is or whatever, it's going to be the sine of 37 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, so 6 over x. So then to solve this, I need to take this and I need to get the x over here and the sine of 37 over here. Now, when I have this, technically what's happening is I'm going to multiply both sides by x, divide both sides by the sine of 37. But what I can do is I can just swap these two things, because that's what's ultimately going to happen, and I'll end up with x is equal to 6 divided by the sine of 37. And then you would just type it in like this. So you type 6 divided by the sine of 37, and you're going to go to 1 decimal place for this. Yep, so it's technically 9.96, so round it up, that's going to make it 10. They put a 0.0 on it in their answer. I do not care about that. If it's a 0, you don't need to write it. So x is 10. I still need to find y. Now, just in case you did something wrong, I would not use this value to find y, okay? Because if you made a mathematical mistake, then your y is also going to be wrong, right? But if I use the 6 that was given to me and y, then I have less of a chance of having two things wrong, right? I really could only possibly end up with one thing wrong. So for the other one, what correlates this angle with this side of 6 and this side of y?
Tangent.
Tangent, opposite over adjacent. So we've got the tangent of 37 is equal to 6 over y. So again, I can take these two things and swap them. So that's going to be y is equal to 6 divided by the tangent, as I write sine. Tangent of 37. Okay, doesn't seem like anybody has it. It's 8. um, 30. And this is an S, not a 5. Alright, so obviously this triangle is kind of drawn, quote-unquote, upside down. So I need to make sure that I'm careful about that as I do this problem. So I need to pick something that associates one of the sides with the known side over here, right? I can't do anything that associates the opposite and the hypotenuse because both of those are unknown values. So what associates, let's do R first. What associates R and 4?
Cosine.
Yep, cosine, because this is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So we'll have cosine of 36 is equal to 4 over R. Again, I can take these things and swap them. So R is equal to 4 over the cosine of 36. Somebody tell me what that's equal to.
4.9.
All right, which one now associates S and 4? Tangent. So this is the tangent of 36 is equal to opposite S over adjacent 4. Now, what's different about this one compared to the other ones we've done so far?
The S is on top.
The S is on top, so that means I don't swap them. Right? I swapped the other thing because it was on the bottom what I needed to solve for. So this time I'm literally just taking and multiplying both sides by 4. 4's cancel over here. So I have S is equal to 4 times the tangent of 36. What? So 2.9. Does that make sense? Do we see the difference here in these two about why I can swap them over here and I just multiply over here? All right, this is an area problem. So I'm going to write the word area here so we know we're doing something a little different. So number 36, I've got a triangle. This angle is 30. We have our right angle. And then they tell us that this bottom side is 11 meters. So our base is 11 meters. Now, to find area, what other piece of information do I need? The height. So I need this value over here in order to find my area. So there's a couple things. I can go back and use the rules of special triangles if you remember what those values are, or your book can do to do that. Or I can now use these other things, which are probably a little bit easier, okay? In this particular case, this is obviously 30, so that has to be 60 and 90, so it's 30, 60, 90. That may not be the case. So I'm going to show you just on the event that it's not a special triangle. That way you would know how to do this, okay? So we're going to do it using our new method for today. So what associates this angle with the height value that I need and this 11? Tangent, because it's opposite over adjacent. So we've got the tangent of 30 is equal to opposite h over adjacent 11. And then just like what I had to do up here to find s, I have to do the same thing. I'm just multiplying by 11 because my variable's on top, so that's where I need it to be. So I'm multiplying both sides by 11. So I have 11 times the tangent of 30. So that's 6.4. This is just meters though, right? Because I've solved for this height right here. So I now know what this is. Bless you. So I know what that is. I'm not done yet. I haven't actually solved for area. What's the formula for area? 1/2 base times height. So we have area is 1/2 times 11 times 6.4. What does that equal?
35.2. Meters squared.
Now, the book answer is slightly different, okay? It's 34.9 meters squared. That's probably because they didn't round. Okay, if you use a rounded number, your answer is going to be slightly off. That's totally fine if you're off by a couple decimal places. If you're off by more than a few decimal places, then you might have done something wrong. So look back over. If you're pretty confident at that point, then okay. But just be aware of that. All right, any questions on that?
So when you multiply, you have to do the number and then tangent cosine. Because if I did it the other way, then I got something different.
Yeah, because if you do it the other way, well, it depends on how you typed it in. If you typed in the tangent, like say tangent of 30, and then you close the parentheses, and then you multiplied it by 11, you'll get the same thing as if you do 11 times this. If you didn't close the parentheses, then that says multiply 30 by 11, and then take the tangent of that value. So it's still like PEMDAS is applying. That's why I always stick it in front so it's not confusing. Did everybody catch what she just asked and what my answer was? Because I don't want you to get an answer wrong because we typed it in wrong. When you type it in your calculator, like when you type this 11 times the tangent of 30, I would recommend you type it this way. If you're going to put the 11 after the 30, you have to close the parentheses around this like this, and then you can multiply it by 11. If you put it inside the parentheses, it's going to give you a totally wrong answer. Okay? So I would just get in the habit of putting it out front. That's the way you're always going to see me write it because it doesn't get confusing. Just check one thing here.
Michael. He does though. He does though. I know he does.
What's wrong with that?
All right. Any questions about this? All right. I gave you problems the other day, 11 through 27 odd. I am adding on 29 through 37 odd. Now, 37 is a word problem. However, they give you the triangle and it's set up. You're just solving for the missing piece of the triangle. Okay, I'm giving you that one because there's not really another good one in here that we can do that's like that, but there's one like that on the quiz that's going to be on Wednesday. Okay, the quiz is on 9-4 and 9-5. And then the only other, well, actually, scratch that. I forgot. I'm not doing 9-7. I'm going to go ahead and do 9-6 tomorrow. So then we're probably looking at a quiz on Friday. Is where I think we're going to land. And then probably test next Tuesday. Okay? Because I won't be here on Thursday for your class. So I'll confirm, but most likely quiz Friday. Yes.